Thank you very much for staying with us. You're still watching TVC Breakfast. And Nigeria is now on track to be the world's fourth most populous country by the year 2050. It's currently the largest economy in Africa, and with 60% of its population under the age of 25, it stands on the threshold of a demographic dividend that can dramatically transform its economy for the better. Now, according to President Joe Biden of the United States, there is need to strengthen ties between African continents, between African communities, I should say, as well as the U.S. government, the African diaspora community in the United States, as well as the global African diaspora. With the ease of doing business initiatives, Nigerians can also work together with investors from outside Nigeria and get job opportunities. Joining us via Zoom now is board member, Biden's Advisory Council on the Ease of Doing Business, Franklin Olakunle Amo. Thank you very much for joining us on TVC Breakfast. So let's begin with you sharing your thoughts on this bid by the U.S. government to enhance partnership with Africa, including Nigeria. Only recently, of course, Nigeria hosted the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, and of course he came riding on the wings of American investors, expressing intense interest to come and invest further in the country.
Good morning, ma'am, and thank you very much, Ma, for having me here. Indeed, I think you are right, and you've said a lot of the important reasons why the U.S. views Nigeria as a critical partner for having a real engagement from the commercial and private sector with the African continent. It's often said that if you're not in Nigeria, you're not in Africa. And I think that that's wholly true. And I think one of the things that's really driving potential and opportunity in the future is the youthful Nigerian population, are the youth, are the sort of their aspirations, their dreams, their ambitions. And so one of the key pillars of U.S. engagement with Nigeria is in the digital economy. There is a lot of intense energy around seeing how we can use digital tools to empower young people and people who have a lot of ambitions and energy and ideas to commercialize those ideas. And that's happening through digital infrastructure. My firm, for instance, Bayless Digital, is focused on data centers, laying fiber, owning towers, investing in satellites. And all of this is to help move data around, have people use data in a way that's very constructive, and create that opportunity for the future. I think the new administration under His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu, I think the U.S. administration has seen the early commitment to bold reforms, which are obviously painful and difficult to carry out, but that courage to enact those reforms has been noted, and I think that the U.S. private sector community is watching with optimism that those issues can be addressed and create an enabling business environment. But the interest is definitely there. The council that I sit on, the President's Advisory Council for Doing Business in Africa, we offer advice to the president through the Department of Commerce. I had the great honor of briefing Secretary Blinken before his trip to Nigeria and informing him of the private sector's interest, which again is in things like manufacturing, things like agro-processing, things like digital economy. All those things are benefiting from the demographic dividend that you talked about, man.
Well, the U.S. is actually expressing commitment to support the developing country, such as Nigeria and other African countries' economy and trade. But then, is it a government-to-government, sort of relationship, or is it that the U.S. is relating to the people directly? How does it work, in terms of, the policy formulations in helping the African countries to grow, this case, Nigeria? So is it a government-to-government conversation or relationship, or just people-to-people, or both?
The U.S. is unique in that it's uniquely driven by its private sector. So I think, one of the challenges that I found that, with countries in Africa engaging with the U.S. and trying to create those partnerships is that there's often a misunderstanding about how the U.S. engages, especially commercially, that's typically through the private sector. So it's private sector led, and I think that while from a government to government level are very important and do exist, certainly the administration in the U.S. has engaged with the Tinubu-led administration constructively and continues to do so. It really is a case of following private sector interests. And I think in that regard, a couple of interesting tools Nigeria has in its kit is that, the Nigerian diaspora, of which, myself, I am a part, is heavily involved in some of this activity. I'll note just, Amazon's local country representative, Mrs. Nana Eribisi, is a Nigerian is of Nigerian descent. The head of Google in Africa, Alex Okosi, is of Nigerian descent. These people both sit on the council as well. So I think that there are also a Coca-Cola's representative on the councils and Nigerian American. So there is that people-to-people engagement. Very recently, there was also a council set up for diaspora engagement. With a lot of Nigerians in the abroad who are also putting their input into this discussion. But just coming to the core of your question, I think what we need to do to get this two-way trade relationship moving is really to create those business-to-business partnerships. I think a lot of times Nigerian companies on the ground can actually play a role in partnering with or co-investing with or receiving support from companies in the United States who want to enter a market like Nigeria, but may not understand the nuances, may not understand the customer preferences, may not understand the local ways of doing business. So I think, those are really rich ways to develop and grow the partnership and start to show continuity and consistency. And furthermore, one last thing I'll say is, not only is the government-to-government relationship important at the federal level, but I think also at the subnational level. I think having some real engagement at the state level, where a lot of times when you're coming in as a business to Nigeria, you ultimately actually end up spending a lot of time dealing with your counterparts at the state level. So developing that understanding, developing those nuances, I think is very important.
Among the initiatives that the U.S. government has led, so far is the African Growth and Opportunities Act, AGOA, and I also know that you've been speaking about it, recently during this engagement that you're having with key Nigerians. So tell us how much of leveraging African businesses, Nigerian businesses are in, and your thoughts generally on how this is helping Nigerians and what Nigerian businesses also need to do to tap further into this potential.
Absolutely, Ma. I think you made a critical point here. One of Nigeria's real opportunities, and this comes back to what you said about the demographic dividend, is to present itself as a potential manufacturing partner to the global supply chain. There is a realization post-COVID and during COVID that there was an over-concentration of the global production supply chain in East Asia. And I think that there is a real effort to diversify away from an overly concentrated supply chain and risky supply chain partners. Nigeria, with its massive population, youthful, very talented, very industrial, very entrepreneurial, can find a niche here to embed itself in global manufacturing supply chains of all sorts. Now, AGOA is very instrumental in this. Now, AGOA is as you mentioned, the African Growth and Opportunities Act. It allows goods to be sold duty-free or duty-reduced into the United States, certain goods. And I think that can be used as a carrot to incentivize American businesses to invest in manufacturing here locally for their supply chains as an alternative to their current supply chain partners, be they in East or Southern Asia. So this is a huge opportunity that I think that Nigeria should grasp with two hands. I spent some time recently in Kenya touring a semiconductor manufacturing lab called STL, where the intent of the entrepreneur there is to mobilize parts of the semiconductor chip manufacturing industry away from Asia to Africa. So opportunities like that abound for Nigeria as well, whether it be in textiles, whether it be in assembly of mobile phones or even automobiles, but embedding itself into that global manufacturing architecture, which can then absorb a lot of our teeming population, reduce our need for imports, reduce our need for hard currency to do those imports. So I think that's a real opportunity for Nigeria to engage with the U.S. private sector. I think there's real interest there on the U.S. side. So that's an opportunity I think people would grasp with two hands. And on the last comment on that, it also gives you an opportunity under the African Continental Free Trade Area, if you utilize that investment interest to create a manufacturing base, you then can be the manufacturer not only for an export, but also within Africa, right? And start to supply our African partners as an alternative to imports from outside.
Interesting stuff. But then, funnily enough, this African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA, is actually a United States Trade Act enacted in the year 2000. But the AGOA itself will be in force not until 2025. This is 2024. And then you're saying that Nigeria should seize this opportunity to... Is that to say that Nigeria has not been maximizing the opportunities this AGOA presents? Talk to us about how far Nigerians have seized this opportunity, and then come 2025, are there any other alternative? Is the government of the United States reviewing, this policy?
Great question, sir. I think well, two things. I'll start with the second part first. The act is up for renewal in 2025. I'm actually part of the AGOA Renewal Committee and working very hard with other partners such as Levi Strauss, Sanmar, other very large U.S. corporations who are utilizing AGOA actively to get it renewed. There is currently bipartisan support on the Hill to renew it. We're optimistic that it will be renewed and renewed for a long period of time, hopefully 10 years or more. But luckily, unlike many things in the U.S., this is actually one where there is a great deal of agreement on a bipartisan basis to renew this African Growth and Opportunity Act. Coming back to your question, the first part of your question about utilization, I think, frankly, Nigeria could definitely do more. It's historically been more actively and abundantly used by East African countries such as Ethiopia and Kenya, who have been pretty strategic about utilizing AGOA to build up a manufacturing base, particularly in the textile space, in the case of Ethiopia, and particularly in the agro-processing space in the case of Kenya. Nigeria, I think, has had challenges utilizing it, frankly, due to some of the usual issues bedeviling our manufacturing capability here in Nigeria. And that's really power, that's really transport infrastructure, that's really congestion at the port. So I think, there are some strategic structural investments that Nigeria should pursue with the partnership of nations like the United States and others to help make investments in that transport infrastructure, in the power architecture, and also at the ports to ensure that we can really be the manufacturing powerhouse that everyone knows that Nigeria can be.
Right. And, still in the fallout of the Blinken visit to Nigeria, he did say that American businesses are really eager to invest further in Nigeria, but he noted the concerns that many of them have, among which are the repatriation of capital. There was also the talk on corruption and, all the other clogs and some other clogs, so to speak, hindering the ease of doing business. What are your thoughts in this regard?
Yes, Ma. I think, those challenges are real. And, in order to be good friends, you have to be frank friends, and you have to tell the truth to one another. I think clearly the currency challenge, which frankly affects Nigerians more than anyone else, is a real concern. It's difficult for businesses to plan on investment and make bold investments and have the courage to make bold investments when it's unclear how the currency will impact that investment over time, irrespective of the actual business merit. Now, all that being said, challenges like corruption, challenges like insecurity, these are real challenges. But I think what underlies all those challenges, and I think, following on what I said at the top about, the administration, I think, being impressed by, pleased with the boldness of the Bola Ahmed Tinubu-led administration so far in taking bold reforms early, is they'd like to see that continue. They'd like to see that intensity continue. I think the U.S. would like to see that commitment be demonstrated to sustainability of those reforms. And frankly, I think what that really means is articulating a bold vision. I think what Nigeria may have lacked, in recent times is a certain boldness of ambition to say, this is what we want to be. We want to be a manufacturing nation. We want to be a digital nation. We want to be a nation that exports. Those things require a very sort of comprehensive set of policies and a commitment to seeing those policies through. I think, if you see Nigerians anywhere, certainly in the U.S., Nigerians outperform. So everyone knows that Nigeria has the ability and the potential and the skill set innately to do these things. I think the question is around the will and the commitment to get these things done. One thing that's encouraging is certainly this administration in Nigeria understands what needs to be done. Everyone understands how difficult it is to enact these kinds of reforms, and given the pain that they require on the population to see through. But we're all hopeful that that commitment can be kept and the sustainability seen.
Interesting. So AGOA actually, the import for the U.S. for 2002 totaled $10.3 billion, and behind South Africa, Nigeria, had $3.5 billion US dollars, mostly crude oil. Apart from crude oil, are there other non-agricultural products that the U.S. really focuses on getting from this country? Could you talk to us about some of these cash crops, if there are?
Yes, absolutely. I would note that there are to start to have those kinds of agro-processing related exports to places like the United States and also the UK. I note that Ogun State has had some success developing a special purpose agro-processing zone with the support of the African Development Bank, private companies like Arise, IIP. And I think that sort of project is a real model for what's possible. And in that project, what you're trying to do is take raw commodities, process them into finished or semi-finished intermediate products that insert themselves into the supply chain, whether it be for additives, for flavorings, for adhesive, for industrial products. People forget that agricultural produce isn't just for food, right? There's a massive amount of industrial purposes for things like soya, for sorghum, for even cassava, right? So these raw commodities that Nigeria has in abundance, I think there's a real opportunity for states with huge agricultural potential to really key in to creating enabling environments around processing those inputs and exporting them into something like AGOA. Additionally, I think Nigeria really should be bold. I think there's no reason why we couldn't in Nigeria see the assembly of mobile handsets, for instance, using using latest chip design, even vehicles. I think there's a move towards not only the internal combustion engine but electric vehicles, and these things sound fanciful, but really other countries at Nigeria's level of development now have in the past embarked on these kinds of initiatives and seen results. Have seen a lot of benefit and prosperity come to their citizens by taking those kinds of bold projects on. And really what they require is commitment and a plan, and that will attract partners from the private sector in the U.S. and other places, I think.
All right, Mr. Olakunle Amo, we thank you very much for speaking with us on TVC Breakfast. Of course, Franklin Olakunle Amo is a board member of the Biden's Advisory Council on the Ease of Doing Business. Thanks again for joining us, and hope you enjoy the rest of your stay in Nigeria.
In his home state.
In your home country before heading back to the U.S., of course. All right.
Thank you, Ma. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, too.